My mom told me to just stay away from the man who saved my little sister's life, then called me compromised when I defended him. When I asked her why, she whispered, "Don't you think it's weird how he noticed her but nobody else did?" I didn't say a word. That was 2 years ago. Last week, she stood in our kitchen crying while watching him teach safety classes to the neighborhood kids. I was 16 when the whole neighborhood started warning me about Ethan. The first time I saw him, he was standing in his driveway, staring at kids riding bikes for way too long. Mom pulled me aside with that look she gets. "Mrs. Flores says he watches children through his window. Just stay away from him, okay?" The next day, I watched him try to compliment Nathan's new bike. Nathan's dad literally yanked his son away mid-sentence. Ethan just stood there, hands flapping at his sides, rocking on his heels. That's when I noticed the way his eyes didn't quite meet anyone's gaze. My cousin has autism. I recognized it immediately. I watched Chelsea's mom grab her daughter and sprint across the street when Ethan waved. The neighborhood WhatsApp lit up. "Creep alert. He just tried talking to Chelsea." Within minutes, 47 parents had responded. But here's what they didn't see. Ethan leaving fresh tomatoes on the Edwards porch when Mr. Edwards lost his job. Him spending his Saturday evening fixing the broken swings at the park, always after kids had gone home. The garden he maintained that fed 3 families who never even thanked him. Everything changed during the July 4th barbecue. My 8-year-old sister Anna vanished. 1 minute she was playing cornhole, the next, gone. Mom was screaming Anna's name so loud her voice cracked. Dad's hands shook calling 911. That's when Ethan appeared, rocking so hard he almost fell over. Words machine gunning out. "Construction site. She's in danger right now." While everyone stood frozen, Ethan was already moving. Dad and I followed. Ethan led us through shortcuts I didn't know existed, straight to an abandoned construction site. There was Anna, crying in a hidden pit, ankle twisted, scared, but alive. Ethan had tracked her path in his head. At the police station, Mrs. Flores gathered a crowd. He knew exactly where she was. Other parents nodded. Maybe he lured her there. Should check his computer. Mom pulled me aside. "Don't you think it's weird how he noticed her but nobody else did?" Dad barely thanked him, then warned me again to stay away. Normal people don't notice things like that. 2 weeks later, someone called Adult Protective Services claiming Ethan was mentally unstable and fixated on minors. Security cameras appeared on every house, all pointed at Ethan's. I found Ethan on his porch that night. He wasn't just crying, he was hitting himself in the head, repeating, "I just wanted to help," over and over. His notebook fell open, page after page of safety observations. Loose pit bull at house 1823. Stop sign blocked by tree. Substance deals at park after 9 p.m. 4 years of protecting a neighborhood that despised him. He sobbed. That construction site, I reported it to the city 3 times. His usual careful speech was gone, replaced by raw pain. "I have high-functioning autism," he continued, finally meeting my eyes for a split second. "But I don't function well in this world. I don't understand why trying to keep kids safe makes me dangerous. My last neighborhood, same thing happened. I saved a kid from drowning. They called me a stalker." He showed me rejection letters from police departments, fire stations, search and rescue teams. Nobody trusts someone like me, but I could save people. I see things others miss. I just wanted to matter. That's when my sister limped outside on her crutches. She'd been listening. Without hesitation, she hobbled over and hugged Ethan. "You saved me," she whispered. "You're not creepy. You're a hero." Ethan broke down completely then. This grown man who'd endured months of hatred for the crime of seeing the world differently. Watching him sob while my little sister held him, it broke something in me too. I couldn't sleep that night. The image of Ethan crying while Anna held him kept replaying in my mind. Around 3 a.m., I heard movement outside. Through my window, I spotted Ethan in his driveway, loading boxes into his car. Anna must have been watching too because I saw her bedroom curtain twitch. Ethan moved methodically, pausing occasionally to make hushed phone calls. I threw on a hoodie and slipped outside. The neighborhood felt different at this hour, empty and cold. Ethan froze when he saw me approaching, then resumed packing with jerky movements. When I reached his door, the smell hit me first. Fresh paint. Someone had spray-painted Predator across his garage door in dripping red letters. The paint was still wet, glistening under the streetlight. Ethan noticed me staring at it. His hands started flapping faster. He explained that this was the 3rd time this week. The first 2 times he'd cleaned it off before anyone saw. This time he was done trying. He revealed something that made my stomach drop. Mr. Flores had been meeting with mall developers. They needed Ethan's property to complete their planned shopping complex. The meeting started last year, right around when the rumors about Ethan began spreading more aggressively. They wouldn't stop until he was gone. My phone buzzed. Anna had texted me. She'd overheard our parents talking downstairs. They were planning something for tomorrow's neighborhood meeting. The phrase, "handle Ethan permanently," made my blood run cold. I stood there, torn between warning Ethan immediately or trying to gather evidence of what they were planning. Anna's text came through again. She'd tried to sneak downstairs to hear more, but twisted her ankle again on the stairs. The stress was making her careless, and now she could barely walk. I made my decision. If I was going to help Ethan, I needed proof. I told him to lock his doors and stay inside tomorrow, then headed home. Mom's phone was charging on the kitchen counter. I grabbed it, planning to use it to record the meeting. Her messages were still open. I almost dropped the phone when I saw what she'd been writing. In a private group chat, she'd been defending Ethan for weeks. She'd shared stories of him helping other families, questioned the Flores' motives, even suggested they were orchestrating something. But in person, she stayed silent. The next morning, I arrived early at the community center. The meeting wasn't supposed to start for another hour, but Mr. Flores was already there. I watched through the window as he destroyed something, safety equipment with tags showing Ethan had donated it to the center last month. He stuffed the broken pieces into a garbage bag. I slipped inside through the side door and hid in the bathroom stall, Mom's phone ready to record. My legs were already cramping from crouching on the toilet seat when Mrs. Flores entered. She was on her phone, confirming something about property values and timeline. Then she stopped. I looked down and realized my shoes were visible under the partition. The bathroom went silent. I held my breath, legs burning from the awkward position. Mrs. Flores' heels clicked closer. Just when I thought she'd demand I come out, her phone rang. She answered it and left, but not before I heard her tell someone that I was compromised and under Ethan's influence. By the time I got home, Dad was waiting. The vein in his forehead that only appeared when he was really upset was throbbing. He'd received Mrs. Flores' text. He demanded to know why I was defending that man. He talked about our family's reputation, how we'd lived here for 15 years without any problems. Why was I trying to destroy that? I retreated to my room and started searching online. In Ethan's shed yesterday, I'd noticed a folder labeled safety reports. I needed to see what was in there. I found something else first. A scanned report from last year about construction site dangers in our neighborhood. It had Ethan's name on it and a big red ignored stamp. He'd tried to prevent accidents before they happened. Over the next few days, I carefully approached neighbors I thought might listen. Mrs. Chen from 2 houses down admitted she'd always thought Ethan was harmless. She'd seen him chase away teenagers who were vandalizing the playground at night. Mr. Peterson confessed Ethan had warned him about a gas leak before it became dangerous. Mrs. Williams said Ethan regularly checked on her elderly mother when she forgot to take in her mail. 3 neighbors, all afraid to speak up publicly. Mom caught me coming back from Mrs. Williams's house. I expected another lecture, but instead, she closed my bedroom door and sat on my bed. She admitted she'd seen Ethan save other children before Anna. She pulled out her laptop and showed me footage from our home security system dated last year. In it, a toddler was wandering toward the street during a block party. Ethan appeared from nowhere, gently redirecting the child back to safety. The parents had thanked him profusely then. Those same parents now called him dangerous. Mrs. Flores escalated things the next day. Fake social media posts started appearing, claiming Ethan had been seen approaching children at addresses across town. The posts used stock photos and vague descriptions, but people shared them anyway. The comment sections filled with rage and demands for action. My boss at the ice cream shop pulled me aside during my shift. He'd received anonymous complaints about employing someone who associated with predators. He said he didn't want to let me go, but if the complaints continued, he'd have no choice. This was my first job, the money I was saving for college. I tried talking to the school counselor about what was happening. She cut me off mid-sentence, saying this wasn't a school matter. Later, I saw a photo on her desk, her and Mrs. Flores at a family barbecue. Sisters-in-law, of course. That evening, I found a note tucked under our doormat. Ethan's handwriting. The truth is here for those who seek it. His shed door was unlocked. Inside, I discovered years of meticulous documentation, maps showing every danger in the neighborhood, broken sidewalks, aggressive dogs, substance-dealing corners. One map had a red circle around an unmarked well on the Flores property. The date showed Ethan had reported it to the city 2 years ago. Anna hobbled over while I was studying the maps. Despite her re-injured ankle, she'd been doing her own investigation. She pointed out something I'd missed. Mrs. Flores' story about where she was during the July 4th barbecue didn't match what Anna remembered. Mrs. Flores claimed she was at the grill when Anna disappeared, but Anna distinctly remembered seeing her heading toward the parking lot right before everything happened. I started connecting dots. Every family Ethan had helped over the years had eventually turned against him. It wasn't random, it was a pattern. Someone would spread a rumor right after Ethan did something helpful, twisting the narrative before anyone could process what really happened. Nathan's older brother Kyle found me at the park. He was in college now, but he'd heard about what was happening. He admitted Ethan had saved him from substance dealers 2 years ago, when he'd made some stupid choices in high school. Ethan had noticed the dealers targeting Kyle, documented their patterns, and warned Kyle's parents before it was too late. Kyle wanted to help, but didn't know how. Together, we convinced 3 other teenagers to share their stories. Each revealed times Ethan had intervened, preventing a kidnapping attempt, spotting a gas leak, noticing signs of abuse. Each story ended the same way. Their parents knew the truth, but stayed silent when the rumors started. Mrs. Flores tried to ban me from the next neighborhood watch meeting, claiming I was disruptive. Kyle's father, who served on the board, blocked the motion. He said everyone deserved to be heard, though he carefully avoided taking sides. During the meeting, tensions exploded. Nothing says innocent community leader like destroying donated safety equipment before breakfast. Mr. Flores really went for the subtle approach there, didn't he? And Mrs. Flores playing phone tag while our OPs crouched on a toilet like some kind of bathroom ninja, only to spot their shoes peeking out. That's straight out of every hide-and-seek game gone wrong. Mr. Thompson, who usually stayed quiet, directly asked why the Flores family was leading the campaign against Ethan. Mr. Flores' face turned red. He started talking about property values and neighborhood safety, but his words felt rehearsed. Mrs. Flores jumped in, redirecting the conversation to Ethan's suspicious behavior. Mrs. Flores pulled out her phone and started texting furiously. Within seconds, several parents' phones buzzed. I watched as their expressions shifted from neutral to concerned. Whatever she'd sent was working. That night, Mom showed me the message. Mrs. Flores had attached edited photos from my visit to Ethan's shed, claiming I had an unhealthy obsession with him. The angles made it look like I was sneaking around at night for suspicious reasons. She'd even circled shadows to suggest Ethan was watching from his window. I recognized these tactics from my psychology class. Gaslighting, manipulation, creating false narratives. I started documenting everything, taking screenshots and saving timestamps. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd need evidence. Anna limped into my room with her tablet. She'd been researching too. Despite Mom's attempts to keep her away from the situation, she showed me something interesting. Mrs. Richards, our elderly neighbor, had posted about losing her cat on July 4th. In her post, she mentioned seeing Mrs. Flores hurrying away from the construction site direction while searching. The timestamp was 20 minutes before Anna disappeared. The next morning, Mrs. Flores knocked on our door. She had a sweet smile and an invitation for Anna, a special play date with some neighborhood children at her house. Anna grabbed my arm, her face pale. We'd talked about this. She politely declined, claiming her ankle still hurt too much. Mrs. Flores' smile tightened. She insisted it would be good for Anna to socialize with normal children. When Anna still refused, Mrs. Flores' mask slipped for just a moment. Her eyes narrowed before she caught herself and left with exaggerated concern about Anna's trauma. Kyle texted me that afternoon. He'd been backing up all of Ethan's safety documentation onto flash drives. His computer skills from college were coming in handy. He was worried the Flores family might try to destroy evidence if things escalated. His timing was perfect. That evening, 2 police officers knocked on Ethan's door. I watched from my window as they questioned him for over an hour. They left without arresting him. There were no grounds for charges, but they made it clear they couldn't stop community action if neighbors felt unsafe. I spent the next day building trust with 5 families by sharing Ethan's actual rescue records. Each family had a personal connection. A child saved from traffic, a gas leak detected, a dangerous dog reported before it attacked. The Johnsons teared up when they realized Ethan had prevented their daughter from being hit by a car 2 years ago. Kyle was walking his dog past the Flores house when he spotted something. He quickly snapped a photo and sent it to me. Mr. Flores was in his driveway with a man in a suit, pointing at Ethan's house and gesturing toward the empty lot behind it. The man had a folder marked with a development company logo. I searched online for the company and found their development proposals. Then I discovered something else. An old newspaper article from Ethan's previous town. The same pattern. A helpful autistic man man, sudden rumors, forced relocation, and then a shopping center built where his house had been. The grocery store became my next stop. I calmly presented facts to anyone who would listen. The pharmacist, Mrs. Kim, stopped stocking shelves to hear me out. She'd noticed Ethan buying supplies for other families, always paying cash, never asking for recognition. She promised to spread the word to her customers. Ethan's moving truck arrived 2 days earlier than expected. He now had only 48 hours before the rental company needed it back. The sight of it parked in his driveway sent a wave of urgency through those of us trying to help. Mrs. Richards made a brave decision. Despite her age and the potential backlash, she decided to speak publicly about what she'd seen on July 4th. At the next informal gathering at the park, she stood up with her walker and clearly stated she'd seen Mrs. Flores near the construction site when Anna disappeared, not at the grill where she claimed to be. Mr. Flores's reaction was explosive. He accused Mrs. Richards of being confused, suggested her medication was affecting her memory, but his wife grabbed his arm, hissing something that sounded like, "This wasn't the plan." Several neighbors noticed the exchange. The cracks in their unity were showing. That evening, Mrs. Flores approached my parents with an envelope. Through the window, I watched Mom's face as she opened it. Her expression went from confusion to disgust. She handed the envelope back and closed the door firmly. Mom told me later it was an anonymous donation for our family if we stopped defending Ethan. The amount was substantial, more than Dad made in 3 months. But my parents' rejection of the bribe spread quickly through the neighborhood group texts. 6 families started a separate group chat, questioning the Flores' leadership. They shared their own observations, how the anti-Ethan campaign had intensified right after the mall development rumors started, how the Flores family seemed to know about incidents before they were reported, how they always steered conversations away from facts. I spent hours at the public records office. The clerk, amused by my determination, helped me find property records. There it was. The Flores family had been in negotiations with mall developers for over a year. The development required Ethan's property to meet minimum size requirements. The dates lined up perfectly with when the rumors about Ethan escalated. Support for the Flores family dwindled to 12 households once I shared the property records. People felt betrayed, manipulated. They'd almost destroyed an innocent man for someone else's profit. Kyle found Ethan's old journal in the shed. One entry from last year detailed the construction site dangers. Ethan had written extensive notes about how children often played there during neighborhood gatherings. He'd tried 3 times to get it properly secured. His frustration was evident in his careful handwriting. Kyle's family made a stand. Despite losing business connections with the Flores family's company, they publicly supported our efforts. Kyle's father said truth mattered more than money. His statement inspired 3 more families to speak up. Anna and I grew closer through this ordeal. Despite our parents' concerns, we investigated together. Her sharp memory and attention to detail complemented my research skills. She noticed patterns I missed, like how Mrs. Flores always positioned herself to watch Ethan's house during gatherings. Mrs. Flores made one last attempt to manipulate me. She cornered me at the coffee shop, suggesting I could accidentally find inappropriate materials in Ethan's shed. She'd make sure I was seen as a hero for exposing him. I recorded the entire conversation on my phone. Her final words chilled me. Even if Ethan had never hurt anyone, who would believe that now? She'd spent months building a narrative. The truth didn't matter if enough people believed the lie. 3 families came forward with stories about the substance house Ethan had reported 2 years ago. His warnings had been dismissed by the Flores family, who claimed he was paranoid. 6 months later, 2 teenagers overdosed there. Those families now realized Ethan had tried to protect their children. Mr. Flores' business partners started distancing themselves as the scandal grew. His real estate company lost 3 major clients in 1 week. The financial pressure was mounting, and it showed in his increasingly desperate attempts to control the narrative. The tipping point came when 30 neighbors gathered at the park. One by one, they admitted they'd always known Ethan was harmless, but had stayed silent out of fear. Fear of being ostracized, of their children being excluded, of becoming targets themselves. The weight of collective shame was palpable. Families began pooling resources to hire a private investigator, not to investigate Ethan, but to document the Flores family's manipulation. The investigator, a former police detective, was shocked by the evidence we'd already gathered. A direct confrontation occurred at Ethan's house. Mr. Flores arrived with 3 other men, demanding Ethan sign papers agreeing to leave immediately. Ethan stood in his doorway, rocking slightly but holding his ground. 15 neighbors formed a protective barrier between them. Mr. Flores finally admitted the truth in his frustration. The mall development would triple property values for those who stayed. He'd done this for the neighborhood's benefit, he claimed. Ethan was just collateral damage in improving everyone's lives. My credibility, once destroyed by Mrs. Flores' texts, slowly rebuilt as neighbors apologized. They'd seen me grow up, knew my character. The tears and shame in their apologies mixed with relief that someone had stood up for truth. The Flores family's options shrank daily. Even their relatives began withdrawing support. Mrs. Flores' sister, the school counselor, quietly removed their family photo from her desk. Blood might be thicker than water, but apparently not thicker than public scandal. During a community meeting, multiple families stood up to share how they'd known Ethan was harmless. Each story added weight to the truth. Parents admitted they'd let fear override their judgment, that they'd chosen comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. I organized small group conversations with neighborhood children, helping them understand Ethan's true nature. Many had absorbed their parents' fears without understanding why. When they learned how many times Ethan had protected them, their perspective shifted completely. 15 families formally apologized to Ethan at an impromptu gathering in his driveway. He stood there, hands flapping rapidly, overwhelmed by the sudden reversal. Some neighbors hugged him, others simply nodded respectfully from a distance. Mrs. Flores made a desperate claim that Ethan had manipulated the children into defending him. The accusation fell flat when parents pointed out their children had barely interacted with him, by the Flores family's own design. Mr. Williams, the final holdout, changed his mind when he saw Ethan rescue a cat from a storm drain during a thunderstorm. Ethan had noticed the cat's cries while everyone else focused on getting inside. He'd acted when no one was watching, expecting no recognition. Word spread to nearby neighborhoods about what had happened. My reputation as someone who'd exposed the truth preceded me. Other communities started questioning their own prejudices, wondering who they might have misjudged. Ethan finally shared his collection of thank you notes. Years of small kindnesses documented in careful handwriting from families he'd helped. Most were from before the rumors started, when people still saw him as quirky, but helpful. The moving truck's presence created urgency. Ethan had 6 hours before the rental expired. Neighbors rallied, some offering offering to pay for an extension, others suggesting he didn't need to leave at all, but something seemed wrong with Ethan. He kept checking his phone, growing more agitated. The Flores family's true nature emerged fully when they publicly threatened Mrs. Richards. They accused her of dementia, suggested she needed a nursing home. The elderly woman stood firm, but the attack on her character enraged even former supporters. Mrs. Flores really went full cartoon villain with that coffee shop move, asking a teenager to plant fake evidence like she's in some spy movie, but forgot she's dealing with a kid who knows how phones work. The stakes crystallized into a simple choice: save Ethan and stand against manipulation, or let the Flores family continue controlling the neighborhood through fear. The community was at a crossroads. I handled the Flores family's threats with calm documentation. Every accusation, every manipulative text, every whispered threat was recorded and shared with our growing coalition. The scared teenager from weeks ago had evolved into someone who understood the power of truth. 30 families rejected the Flores family's final manipulation attempt at an emergency meeting. Mrs. Flores claimed we were all under Ethan's influence, that he'd orchestrated everything. The accusation was so absurd that someone actually laughed. Multiple witnesses came forward to share stories of Ethan's years of quiet protection. The crossing guard mentioned how Ethan always walked the dangerous intersection during her bathroom breaks. The mail carrier revealed Ethan had reported suspicious packages 3 times, potentially preventing disasters. Ethan agreed to delay his move as neighbors pledged support, but something was still wrong. He kept looking at his phone, his usual careful demeanor cracking. He muttered about another place and starting over. Mrs. Flores claimed Ethan had orchestrated Anna's rescue to look like a hero. The theory was so offensive that Anna herself stood up, showing photos of her injury and the rescue video from Ethan's phone that he'd taken to document the dangerous site. The Flores family listed their house for sale within a week. Their business had collapsed, their reputation destroyed. It was a natural consequence of their exposure, not revenge, but simple cause and effect. Ethan's relationships with families began to strengthen. He was invited to barbecues, asked for safety advice, included in neighborhood watch meetings. The man who'd been isolated was slowly being woven into the community fabric. An unexpected champion emerged when the police chief's wife revealed Ethan had helped her son escape a dangerous situation at the park. She'd never reported it officially, respecting Ethan's wish to avoid attention, but now she spoke up. 40 families signed a statement supporting Ethan and acknowledging the injustice done to him. The document was filed with the city, creating a permanent record of the truth. It felt like a small victory against prejudice. The city finally acknowledged Ethan's ignored safety reports and promised action. The construction site would be properly secured. The unmarked well on the Flores property would be addressed. Years of warnings would finally be heeded. The morning after the city's promise, I woke to find Ethan's moving truck still in his driveway. Through my window, I watched him pace beside it, phone pressed to his ear. His free hand moved in agitated patterns while he spoke. Anna texted me that she'd seen Mrs. Flores loading boxes into her own car at dawn. The paint on Ethan's garage had been scrubbed clean overnight, leaving ghost letters visible only in certain light. Someone had tried to fix what they'd broken. I headed outside to find Kyle already at Ethan's door with a stack of papers. The investigator had compiled everything: property records, manipulated photos, witness statements. Kyle's father stood beside him, jaw set with determination. Mrs. Flores appeared on her lawn, flanked by 2 men I didn't recognize. She pointed at our gathering, gesturing wildly. One man took photos while the other scribbled notes. The performance continued even as neighbors turned their backs. The confrontation escalated when Mr. Flores emerged from his house carrying a folder. He marched toward Ethan's property line, waving documents. 15 neighbors immediately formed a human barrier, their message clear without words. I noticed Mrs. Richards watching from her porch, gripping her walker. She'd endured their threats but hadn't backed down. Her presence alone spoke volumes about choosing truth over comfort. Mr. Flores's voice carried across the yard as he insisted Ethan had signed something years ago. Kyle's father examined the papers, then shook his head. Whatever Mr. Flores claimed, the documents didn't support it. Anna hobbled outside despite Mom's protests. She positioned herself next to me, her small frame radiating defiance. The girl who'd been saved wasn't going to let her savior be driven away. More neighbors arrived throughout the morning. The Johnsons brought coffee, the Petersons carried folding chairs, Mrs. Chen set up a card table. What started as protection became a vigil. Mrs. Flores retreated to make phone calls, pacing her driveway. Each conversation seemed to increase her agitation. Her carefully constructed plan was crumbling, and everyone could see it. The development company's representative arrived in a black sedan. He surveyed the scene: 40 neighbors surrounding Ethan's house, the Flores couple isolated on their lawn. His expression suggested quick calculations of profit versus problems. I watched him approach Mr. Flores, who gestured frantically toward Ethan's property. The representative's response was a slow headshake. He handed Mr. Flores an envelope and returned to his car without looking back. Mr. Flores tore open the envelope, his face draining of color. Mrs. Flores snatched the papers from him, scanning rapidly. Whatever the message, it transformed her controlled demeanor into barely contained rage. Kyle showed me his phone. The investigator had discovered something significant. The Flores family had attempted this same scheme in 2 other neighborhoods. Both times they'd failed when communities united against them. Mrs. Flores made one final attempt at control. She strode toward our gathering, chin high, clutching a new set of papers. But Mrs. Williams stepped forward, blocking her path. Other neighbors closed ranks. The standoff lasted several minutes. Mrs. Flores's mask finally shattered completely. Her perfectly styled hair fell loose as she gestured wildly, her accusations growing more desperate and contradictory. Mr. Thompson emerged from his house carrying a box. Inside were printed copies of every manipulated photo, every false social media post, every threatening text. He'd been quietly documenting everything for weeks. The police arrived, but not for Ethan. 2 officers approached the Flores couple with serious expressions. Apparently, filing false reports and harassment had consequences. The neighborhood watched as they were instructed to cease all contact with Ethan. Anna tugged my sleeve, pointing toward Ethan. He'd stopped pacing, standing perfectly still in his doorway. His hands had stopped their constant movement. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked peaceful. Mrs. Flores's sister arrived, still in her school counselor attire. She surveyed the scene, spoke briefly with her sister, then left without offering support. Family loyalty had limits when reputation was at stake. The moving truck driver approached Ethan, clearly confused by the crowd. Ethan spoke with him briefly, then handed over some cash. The truck pulled away empty, leaving tire marks on the street. Kyle's father produced legal documents from his briefcase. He'd spent the morning at the courthouse, filing for a restraining order on Ethan's behalf. The Flores family would be legally required to maintain distance. Neighbors began sharing stories openly now. Each revelation painted a clearer picture of Ethan's years of silent protection. The man they'd feared had been their guardian, watching for dangers they never noticed. Mr. Flores attempted to rally his remaining supporters, but only empty driveways greeted him. The 12 families who'd backed him had quietly withdrawn, unwilling to be associated with exposed manipulation. I documented everything on my phone: the community's stand, the Flores' isolation, Ethan's quiet dignity, not for social media or attention, but for the record. Truth needed witnesses. Mrs. Kim from the pharmacy arrived with a petition. Over 200 signatures supported Ethan remaining in the neighborhood. She'd spent days gathering them from customers who'd heard the real story. The Flores couple retreated to their house as the afternoon wore on, their curtains drawn, cars hidden in the garage. The predators had become the prey, isolated by their own tactics. Anna created a simple poster with markers: "Ethan saved me." Other children arrived with their own signs. Soon, Ethan's yard displayed dozens of colorful testimonies from kids he'd protected. The local news van that appeared was quickly surrounded by neighbors who made it clear this was a private matter. No interviews, no footage. The reporter left empty-handed, respecting the community's wishes. Evening approached with the Flores house dark and silent. A for sale sign appeared on their lawn, planted hastily and already tilting. Their departure was inevitable now, a matter of when, not if. Ethan finally emerged from his house, walking slowly through the crowd. He paused at each sign children had made, his eyes scanning their words. His usual rocking had calmed to a gentle sway. Mrs. Richards made her way over with her walker, presenting Ethan with a simple certificate she'd made. Neighborhood Guardian, it read, decorated with shaky handwriting. Ethan clutched it like a treasure. The celebration was quiet, respectful. No one pushed Ethan beyond his comfort zone. Neighbors understood now. Different didn't mean dangerous. It meant seeing what others missed. Kyle's family invited everyone for an impromptu barbecue. Tables appeared on lawns, grills fired up. The neighborhood hadn't gathered like this in years, fear having kept them separated. I found Mom in the crowd, tears on her face. She'd carried guilt about her silence for weeks. Watching the community finally unite around truth instead of fear had broken something loose in her. Dad stood with a group of fathers, all admitting they'd known Ethan was harmless, but had prioritized their family's social standing. The weight of that choice showed in their slumped shoulders. Anna sat with other children, her crutches forgotten as she demonstrated how Ethan had found her. The kids listened with wide eyes, finally understanding their neighborhood's real hero. The Flores house remained dark as laughter filled the street. Their isolation was complete, a consequence of their own making. No violence, no revenge, just the natural result of exposed deception. Mr. Flores appeared once at an upstairs window, surveying the unity below. He disappeared quickly, but not before several neighbors noticed. His empire of manipulation had crumbled in weeks. Ethan moved through the gathering slowly, accepting handshakes and gentle pats on the shoulder. He'd found his place not through forcing acceptance, but through quiet persistence in doing right. The investigator arrived with final documentation. The Flores' property scheme had connections to similar attempts across the state. Authorities were now interested, though the neighborhood wanted no part of larger investigations. As darkness fell, neighbors began discussing the future. Ethan's safety insights were valuable. Perhaps he could lead a community watch program, using his unique perspective to protect everyone. Mrs. Flores made one last appearance, loading suitcases into her car. She moved quickly, avoiding eye contact. The woman who'd controlled through fear now fled from accountability. The children presented Ethan with a handmade book of thank you notes. Each page detailed a time he'd kept them safe. Anna had organized it, despite her injury slowing her down. Ethan's response was to pull out his worn notebook. He showed the children his observation methods, teaching them to notice dangers. Knowledge shared was protection multiplied. The real estate sign on the Flores lawn had multiple stickers by morning. Price reduced, motivated sellers. Their need to leave quickly would cost them financially. Another natural consequence. I realized my job at the ice cream shop was safe now. The anonymous complaints had stopped when the Flores' influence crumbled. My boss even apologized for considering termination. 3 moving trucks arrived at the Flores house within days. They packed quickly, efficiently, avoiding interaction with neighbors. Their departure was methodical, like their manipulation had been. Ethan began teaching informal safety classes in his garage. Children learned to identify hazards. Parents discovered what they'd been missing. His autism became an asset, not a liability. The neighborhood dynamics shifted completely. Instead of whispered suspicions, there was open communication. Instead of fear-based unity, there was truth-based community. Mrs. Richards became Ethan's first official friend. They walked together each morning, her slow pace matching his need for routine. She'd stood for truth when it cost her, earning his trust. Kyle's father helped Ethan understand his rights regarding property and harassment. The legal protection was solid. No one could force him out again. He was home. The Flores house sold within a month to a young family who knew nothing of its history. The neighborhood welcomed them warmly, determined not to repeat past mistakes. Anna's ankle healed, but she maintained her bond with Ethan. She'd bring him drawings of safety improvements she'd noticed. He'd add them to his maps, proud of his smallest student. The community center displayed Ethan's donated safety equipment prominently now. A small plaque acknowledged his years of contributions. Recognition had finally replaced suspicion. 6 months later, the construction site was a playground. Ethan had consulted on the design, ensuring every element prioritized safety. Anna cut the ribbon at the opening, Ethan standing proudly beside her. The city hired Ethan as a part-time safety consultant. His reports, once stamped ignored, now received priority attention. His unique perspective had found official value. I returned to school with a different understanding of community and courage. My college essay wrote itself, a story of standing against comfortable lies for uncomfortable truths. The neighborhood thrived without the Flores' toxic influence. Block parties returned, children played freely, neighbors looked out for each other. Fear had been replaced by genuine care. Ethan's shed became a resource center. His maps, updated regularly, helped everyone identify and address dangers. What once marked him as different now marked him as essential. Some wounds remained. Certain neighbors still crossed the street when Ethan approached, habit harder to break than fear. He noticed but didn't take offense. Understanding change took time. His notebook evolved into a community log. Neighbors added their own observations, creating a collective safety net. Ethan's methods had become everyone's methods. The unmarked well on the former Flores property was properly sealed. A small garden grew there now, tended by rotating neighbors. Beauty had had replaced hidden danger. Anna started middle school with confidence, her experience teaching her to see beyond surface judgments. She credited Ethan with saving more than her life. He'd saved her ability to trust. Mom joined the neighborhood watchboard, determined to ensure no one else faced what Ethan had endured. Her voice, once silent, now advocated for inclusion and understanding. Dad learned to value different perspectives. He'd consult Ethan about home repairs, realizing the man he'd feared noticed problems he'd missed for years. The playground bore a simple dedication: for all who watch over others. No names needed. Everyone knew. Ethan had earned recognition through service, not words. New families moving in heard Ethan's story immediately. Not as gossip, but as a reminder. Judge by actions, not assumptions. The neighborhood had learned its lesson. Ethan still rocked when overwhelmed, still flapped his hands when excited. But now neighbors saw these as part of him, not reasons to fear. Acceptance had replaced suspicion. The substance dealers he'd recorded were gone. The dangerous dogs were properly contained. The broken sidewalks were repaired. Years of ignored warnings had finally been heeded. I graduated high school with Ethan in the audience. He'd become family to us, the uncle who saw dangers others missed. His presence at milestone moments felt natural now. The community center hosted monthly safety workshops. Ethan led them with quiet authority, teaching observation skills. Parents who'd once feared him now took notes at his sessions. Some nights I'd see him walking his routes, checking for new hazards. But now porch lights turned on to help him see, and neighbors waved from windows. He wasn't alone anymore. The mall development happened anyway, but 3 blocks over. The developer had found easier targets than a united neighborhood. The florist's scheme had failed completely. Ethan kept every thank you note, every child's drawing, every gesture of acceptance. His refrigerator covered in proof that different didn't mean dangerous. It meant needed. Anna grew taller, her limp barely noticeable. She'd inherited Ethan's observation skills, pointing out hazards before they became problems. The saved had become a protector. The neighborhood's children grew up knowing Ethan's true nature. They'd wave when passing his house, stop to share discoveries. Fear hadn't passed to the next generation. His autism hadn't changed, but the neighborhood's understanding had. They'd learned to see his differences as strengths, his unique perspective as an asset. The story spread quietly to surrounding areas. Other neighborhoods began questioning their own prejudices, wondering who they might have misjudged. Change rippled outward. Ethan found his purpose, not in being normal, but in being himself. The neighborhood found its conscience, not in comfortable lies, but in uncomfortable truths. Safety improved dramatically. Crime dropped. Accidents became rare. The man they'd tried to drive away had made everyone safer. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Years later, children who'd barely known him would credit Ethan with teaching them to truly see, not just hazards, but people, to look beyond surface differences to find hidden value. The Flora's name became a cautionary tale, whispered when prejudice surfaced. Their manipulation had failed, but the lesson remained. Fear could be manufactured, but truth eventually won. Ethan aged gently, his routines unchanged, but his isolation ended. Neighbors checked on him as he'd checked on them. The protector was protected in return. Anna pursued social work in college, inspired by Ethan's example. She'd learned that helping others meant seeing what they couldn't, speaking when they wouldn't. The neighborhood watch evolved into something more, a true community. Ethan's methods had taught them to look out for each other, to value different perspectives. His legacy wasn't in monuments or fame, but in changed hearts. 40 families who'd learned that different meant needed. Children who'd learned that heroes came in unexpected forms. The construction site where Anna was rescued became a memorial to second chances. Not a formal one, just a place where prejudice died and understanding was born. Ethan continued his walks, his observations, his quiet protection. But now he walked with friends, observed with partners, protected with support. He'd found his place by being himself. The neighborhood had learned its hardest lesson. The person they'd feared most had been the one keeping them safest. Sometimes protectors looked different. Sometimes different was exactly what was needed. Talk about the longest "I told you so" in history. If you want more stories like this, hit that subscribe button below.